Today we continue our journey through Judges chapters 13 to 15. I will read key passages and I encourage you to read the full chapters on your own. Now, the full reading reference is provided for you below. So, let's get into this, y'all, because the cycle begins again. Judges 13 and 1 says, "Again the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. So the Lord gave them into the hands of the Philistines for 40 years. This is the longest period of oppression recorded in Judges. Before raising a deliverer, God prepared one from birth." My goodness. Manoah's wife was unable to conceive, yet the angel of the Lord appeared and said, "You are barren and childless, but you are going to become pregnant and give birth to a son." Judges 13, 2 to 3. In Judges 13, 4 through 5, the angel instructed that the child be raised under the Nazarene vow, described in number 6. He was to drink no wine or fermented drink, eat nothing unclean, and no razor was ever to touch his head, because he would be dedicated to God from birth. That son was Sampson. In Judges 13, 6 to 14, Manoah prayed that the man of God will return and teach them how to raise the child. God answered his prayers, and the angel of the Lord repeated the instructions. God was preparing them both, y'all, for Samson and his parents for the calling ahead. In Judges 13, 15, and 18, Manoah asked the visitor to stay while he prepared a young goat. The angel told him to offer it as a burnt offering to the Lord. Manoah still did not know who he was speaking to. When he asked the angel's name, the angel replied, Why do you ask my name? It is beyond your understanding." In Judges 13, 19 to 23, Manoah offered the sacrifice on a rock, and the angel of the Lord ascended in the flame. Only then did Manoah realize who they had seen. He feared they would die, but his wife reminded him that if the Lord intended to kill them, he would not have accepted their offering or promised a son. In Judges 13, 24 to 25, Samson was born. The Lord blessed him, and the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him. Chapter 14 reveals both Samson's calling and his compromises. In Judges 14, 1 to 4, Samson chose a Philistine woman for a wife. Though his parents questioned him, the Lord used these events to begin confronting the Philistines. On the way to Timnah, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon Samson, and he tore apart a young lion with his bare hands. Judges 14, 5 to 6. Later, he returned to the carcass, found honey inside it, ate some, and gave some to his parents. By touching the carcass, Samson ignored the Nazarene separation, the vow God had placed on his life. At his wedding feast, Samson presented a riddle. He says, "Out of the eater something to eat, out of the strong something sweet." Judges 14 and 14. The Philistines threatened his bride until she persuaded Samson to reveal the answer. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon Samson. Samson struck down 30 Philistine men, paid his wager, and returned home. When he later returned for his wife, he discovered she had been given to another man. Samson retaliated by tying torches between pairs of foxes, and releasing them into the Philistine grain fields, vineyards, and olive groves. Chapter 15 continues this conflict. The Philistines came against Judah because of Samson. Samson withdrew to the rock of Etam. Now, if you're reading the NIV, it says Samson stayed in a cave in the rock of Edom. Some translations say the cleft of the rock of Edom. The Hebrew describes a natural opening in the rock that served as a shelter what we commonly call a cave. So the translations describe the same location just from different perspectives. Now, moving along. The men of Judah bound Samson and handed him over to the Philistines. In Judges 15:14-17, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon Samson. The ropes fell from his arms, and with the fresh jawbone of a donkey, he struck down 1,000 Philistine men. After the battle, Samson cried out to the Lord. In Judges 15:18-19, the Lord split open the hollow place, and water came out, restoring Samson's strength. Samson called it in Hakkor, meaning the spring of the caller or spring of the one who cried out. Judges 15 closes by telling us Samson judged Israel for 20 years during the days of the Philistines. Now, what do these chapters show and tell us? The first, God prepares his servants before he calls them. Parents are responsible for raising their children according to God's instruction. Being called by God does not remove the responsibility to obey him. The Spirit of the Lord empowers God's people for God's purposes. Compromise often brings or begins, I should say, with small decisions. God provides strength for the battle and provision afterward. Now, let's connect all of this across Scripture. Samson's Nazarite calling points back to number 6, 1-21. The angel of the Lord ascending in the flame reminds us of Exodus chapter 3 and verse 2. The Spirit empowering Samson reflects Zechariah chapter 4 and verse 6. And God providing water points forward to Isaiah 41:17-18. Samson's life reminds us that being set apart is not only about how we begin, but how we faithfully walk with God. Now, I am encouraging you to read Judges chapters 13-15 in full. Y'all, watch how God prepared Samson even way before his birth. Watch how the Spirit of the Lord empowered him. Watch both his victories and his compromises. And remember, God not only calls his people to be set apart, he calls them to remain faithful. The story continues tomorrow.